Good afternoon, fourth graders. Happy holidays. You can see I'm here in my Polar Express onesies to have our second power hour of the school year. Today we're going to be focusing on a reading standard, RI2, that's determining the main idea of a text and explaining, this is important, how it is supported by key details. Finally, this standard asks us to summarize the text. So prior to coming here today, your teachers gave you a text called The Great Chicago Fire. Today we're going to be asking ourselves, what is the main idea of the article, The Great Chicago Fire? Take a moment and read that out loud with me. What is the main idea of the article, The Great Chicago Fire? In today's lesson, as we tackle this standard, we will learn how to determine the main idea of an article. Blue is important, look closely, by combining key details from the text and information from the text features. This article should be familiar to you. It is an informational article about a fire that nearly destroyed the entire city of Chicago in 1871. Here we can see it was written by Michael A. Signal. And I want to really draw your attention today to all of the text features, because often we ignore text features, but in reality, these are tools that help the reader locate information in the text quickly and easily, and we should never ignore text features. Here we can see the title, which obviously gave us a large clue about what the main idea is. But we're not in second grade anymore, folks. It's not enough to know this is about the Great Chicago Fire. You are going to have to also find the support. This illustration gives me an idea about what that looked like. The caption, of course, is always going to give me information about that illustration or photograph. And finally, the headings. I'm going to say that one again, the headings. Headings are huge clues to how to break down the information as you read through a larger text. So, once again, before we even jump into an informational text, we've got to make sure we are recognizing the tools that are provided for us. Today, as we summarize, we're going to be retelling ideas or events in our own words. In our own words. Boys and girls on Right Score and on the Georgia Milestones, you guys sometimes get copying. Copying means you accidentally used too much of what the author said and not enough what we call paraphrasing. So you might be asking, how do I do that? Step 1, pick out the main points in the text. Step 2, use keywords and paraphrase. Paraphrasing is simply putting it in your own words. If I said the Polar Express day is going to be so much fun, you could say it was enjoyable on the Polar Express day. We're just flip-flopping things and saying it with synonyms. Again, paraphrasing is just using the author's ideas. The author's ideas, not your own. We are not making things up. That's the other thing we got on Right Score that really kind of hurt us. They would say you were off topic. I'm glad you have ideas, but when we are simply finding the main idea with text support, we are not using our own ideas. We're taking the author's ideas and putting them in our own words. And finally, a summary should be shorter than the text. We are not telling everything that happened. We are just telling key ideas and details. So, today we're going to reread each section of the text and use those text features to look for key details and information. We're going to take some notes based on that and reread our notes from each section and ask, what is each section mostly about? We'll jot those things down. And finally, we'll think about all of the things we've written down and summarize, asking ourselves, how do these summaries connect to each other? What important idea about the topic is the author trying to teach me? With these 3 steps, we will find success with our main idea standard. So let's do it. The first section, or the first subheading in our article was called The Fire Rages. I'm going to reread this section and use the text features as well as the important details that I see to determine what to write down. So it says, sometime around 9 o'clock on the evening of October 8, 1871, a fire was spotted in a wooden barn on the south side of Chicago. Okay, I'm seeing some 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, and why. I got the who, what, where, when, and why. And I always underline those things because those are key details right off the bat. When was it? 9 o'clock. Do I know more about when it was? Yes, it was October 1871. What was it? It was a fire, and it was spotted in a wooden barn in Chicago. I'm not underlining everything, folks. Sometimes when I give you a pencil and I ask you to underline important details, you underline everything. We are just underlining those 5 W's here. The city's firefighters were tired from battling blazes all week, but they quickly gathered their equipment and rushed to where they thought the fire had started. Where they thought the fire had started. The firemen were given faulty directions and didn't arrive at the correct site for an hour. Whoa. During that hour, the small fire had grown quickly out of control and devoured the barn. Pause. I see that this devoured is in bold. That means the author thought you might not know that word. We can do 2 things at that point. This text came with a glossary. That's one of those text features. We can actually define what that word meant by going to our glossary, or we can use our context clues. It was out of control and it devoured the barn. Must be something about destruction, because fire is going to destroy a barn. So devoured must be some form of destroying. As the wind picked up, it carried the fire with it, spreading it from building to building. So here, I've got some information that I can put on my notes. 9 o'clock, October 1871. I don't rewrite everything. I just jot my underlines. It was in a wooden barn in Chicago. Again, I'm not writing everything, guys. You don't need to waste your time. The firefighters went to the wrong place. I'm going to put firefighters equal, wrong direction. They didn't go to where it started. Then I'm going to say out of control, and I'm going to say spreading. Now, of course, I was able to get some of this information just from my subtitle, but now I can start to put these things into my own words. So here, 9 o'clock, October 1871, wooden barn in Chicago, firefighters given wrong directions, out of control and spreading. I can put that in my own words. At 9 o'clock on October 1871, a wooden barn in Chicago caught fire. Because firefighters were given wrong directions, it spread out of control. Boom, done with that section. Let's try another one. Every object in the fire's path became more fuel for it. It burned dry houses, barns, warehouses, and wood-lined streets. Flames even raced across the Chicago River, feeding on flammable waste in the water. Again, we've got this bold
Good morning, teachers and students. Pardon the interruption. As a friendly reminder, teachers, please keep in mind that the media center is closed because that's where we are preparing for your holiday luncheon. Keep in mind that once you take your students to the cafeteria, please feel free to stop by the media center in order to get your lunch. But the media center is closed to students due to the luncheon. Thank you.
Again, I pick out what's important. I noticed flammable has a bold under it, so I put a question mark. This tells me I need to go and figure out what that word means. I can look in the glossary, or I can use context. Here I can even use some pieces of the word. Flammable sounds like flame, able to flame. Oh, that's able to catch fire. And now I know that this fire's path was growing. This entire thing is telling me it was growing. And then I've got some ideas from the trash or the flammable waste in the water, and that wind is continuing to push, and that fire is headed north. So again, every time I'm reading, I'm thinking who, what, where, when, why. I'm thinking, how can I say that in my own words? This one's pretty easy. The fire was growing because of flammable trash and wind and was headed north. Boom, done. Now I move on to my next one. It says, battling the blaze soon became impossible. But even if the firefighters had wanted to continue, the city's water pumps were already destroyed. Without any water, the people of Chicago were helpless. It would keep pushing north, engulfing more of the dry city for at least 20 hours. 300 people had died in the fire. Many more citizens lost their homes and all of their possessions. So now it's becoming harder. We can see the water pumps were destroyed. We can see that the people were helpless. It burned out of control for at least 20 hours. We can see 300 people died and many lost their homes. I'm picking out what's important. And now I can put those things together. Water pumps. And since these are notes, I don't have to write it out. That tells me they're gone. 20 plus